If there's one name that's synonymous with the history of rock and electric guitars, then it has to be Gibson. And here in my hands, I'm holding the holy grail of the electric guitar world. This is a 1959 Gibson Les Paul Standard Sunburst. It's the legendary guitar that many rock heroes have played. Now, this has a fabulous timeline. It belonged to a gentleman who sadly now passed away, and his name was James Morgan. He was mainly a bassist and guitarist. He acquired this guitar in around about 1972. In those days, even a Gibson like this was a much revered guitar, and apparently he paid around about £450 for it, which was an awful lot of money. And at the same time, basically, he was starting to make friends in the music business, and he became very friendly with a gentleman called Graham Noden. And believe it or not, this guitar was Graham Noden's first paying job. He refretted this in around about 1973 and became great friends with James, the owner. Now, with that impeccable history and the knowledge that Graham Noden, such a specialist guitar maker and luthier, having known this guitar since circa 1972-73 and maintaining it for his owner James, it gives us a faultless timeline of the history of this guitar and its ownership. Now, I spoke to Graham about this guitar at length, but what he was able to do was tell me everything that had happened to this guitar over the last 50 years. James gigged and played this guitar. He wasn't worried about taking it out on the road and using it despite its value, but Graham set it up especially for James. Now, if we look at the way that this guitar is set up, we can see that basically the bridge has been reversed the other way round. That was set up so that James basically wouldn't break the strings so often, because he used to rest his hand on the bridge. And the tail has got the strings looped over the top of it. In terms of the originality of the guitar, there are several overriding factors that we can look at immediately. First off, we can see that there's a serial number on the back of it. And the serial number, if we look closely, is 9 with a gap 1865, and that's printed in ink on the headstock. That's absolutely perfect. The 9 denoting 1959. It has a maple deck. The sunburst coloration has faded back, which is typical of guitars of this period. The maple has a gorgeous iridescence, and we can see that as we turn it to the light, reflecting the grain and the double sections of veneer that are used on the top of the guitar there. All of the metalwork appears to be original. It has its original PAF humbucker pickups on it. These in themselves are valuable commodities, but they are absolutely original to the guitar, and we have the original plastic work around them here as well. I can't vouch for the knobs. They look to be the originals on it, but they're exactly the right style. Under the scratch plate, we do have a bit of the original coloration. With these guitars, in the early 60s, Gibson had kind of managed to solve the paint fade problems on their guitars. But part of the characteristic of this 59 is the way that it ages back to this yellow golden tone. And it really is absolutely gorgeous. There are other things that have happened to the guitar. We can see that there's a hole here, and I can see from the configuration of those holes that it was probably set up at one point in its life with a Bixby tremolo on it. But that would have almost certainly been before James's ownership in the 1970s. Typically everything else is good, the trapezoid fret markers on it, but it has got replacement machine heads on it. So these are not the original cloisons, obviously. They've been replaced for it to tune more effectively, and you can see the scars there where the cloisons were attached to it. It has all the original pots and things inside it, but the sides of the guitar have been refinished, and that was done again prior to James's ownership in the early 1970s. So what we have here is a very original example of a 59 Gibson Les Paul, which shows all the attributes of being well gigged, but it is in fact in very, very good condition. Now, this guitar forms part of a personal collection of James, and I have a few others around me here. We have a fabulous 52 gold top, which of course is the Gibson that preceded this particular Les Paul version. We've got a wonderful 63 salmon pink precision bass over there, and a fabled 60 Fender Strat as well. And these form part of a collection of 20 or so guitars and a fabulous collection of studio and period music equipment that all belong to James. And it is our pleasure at Dore Rees, obviously, to offer this as a single owner collection and to represent this absolute icon of the guitar world. And to hold it is to hold something that is special, because imbued in this musical instrument is also a lot of history, but the personality of James himself. And many musical instruments feel like they are part of their owner. And this feels like part of James, and it's an absolute beauty to play.